Greetings everyone and thanks for joining us on this Paranormal Pit Stop. Tonight, we'll be exploring a historic and popular lodging located off of a road sharing in its namesake within Yellowstone National Park on the Wyoming side that boasts the title of being the largest log hotel in the whole of the United States and also of being one of the largest in the world, standing as the very first of the great park lodges of the American West and rumored to harbor centuries of restless spirits tied to its past. Are you sure you're ready to brave the history and hauntings of the Old Faithful Inn? Historically, in 1883, the Upper Geyser Basin would welcome the establishment of its first formal accommodations in the form of humble tent lodgings by the name of the Shack Hotel, which was put on under the Yellowstone Park Association and that toted a very basic structure which acted as a dining room, kitchen, and manager's quarters. On November 17th of 1894, this structure would burn to the ground, and a replacement building, which wasn't much of a step up, was erected in its stead to stand until a more permanent design was selected. Eventually, this design was carried out under architect Robert Reamer, with construction of the Old Faithful Inn transpiring through the winter months from 1903 to 1904. The Old Faithful Inn would first open its doors through spring of 1904, boasting massive open 3-story ceilings, electric lighting, and steam heat across its formidable 140 rooms. Later, in 1913, it would welcome the addition of its East Wing. In 1922, the dining hall was expanded. From 1927 to 1928, the West Wing was constructed alongside an extension of the main building, and in 1936, the Bear Pit Lounge was added between the West Wing and dining hall. Sadly, through World War II, the Old Faithful Inn, along with other lodgings across the park, would close their doors for a time. However, following a conclusion to the conflict in 1946, the expanse would promptly reopen and would nearly be overrun by eager tourists. Unfortunately, the inn's original lobby fireplace chimney structure, the upper balconies, and Widow's Walk were all badly damaged in the 1959 Hebgen Lake earthquake, and for a time, the site would be closed to the public due to safety concerns, until proper repairs could be issued. In 1962, the Bear Pit was moved to its current location. In 1987, the inn was designated a National Historic Landmark, and from 1993 to 1994, the East and West Wings rooms would see full renovations. More recently, in celebration of the Old Faithful's centennial, in 2004, all original portions of the hotel would see restorations, modernizations, and more renovations, including updates to their electrical, heating, and plumbing. And this project was actually so comprehensive it wouldn't fully conclude until 2008. In the present, the Old Faithful Inn remains open to the public seasonally from May through October, and offers a range of accommodations, sweeping views of the iconic Old Faithful Geyser, in-house dining and drink, events, touring options, and more. Oh, and on a fun little side note, local legend intertwines with history to tell that on August 25th, sometime through the early 20th century, of how a savage blizzard enveloped the region, stranding a handful of guests at the inn, and rather than panicking, and because the setting matched, of how these guests decided to celebrate Christmas with each other, exchanging gifts and singing to relieve tension. Now, annual tradition dictates that every August 25th, Christmas arrives to Yellowstone National Park just a bit early, with festivities including tree lightings, carol singing, festive food and drink, games, gift exchanges, and more. Not really all that surprising when considering its lengthy history. The Old Faithful has long been surrounded in stories that its bounds are haunted by countless supernatural manifestations, which, quite simply, are tied to its many past guests, employees, workmen, owners, and the like. And those frequenting its bounds have described a range of otherworldly phenomena, including phantom footsteps heard running through empty hallways, instances of doors opening and closing on their own, and objects sighted moving around by themselves or even floating in midair. The entity of a larger man in a black hat has been observed drifting about, while one guest who stayed in room 2 documented being awakened by an unnaturally cold chill and opening her eyes to find a spectral woman in 1800s attire floating at the foot of her bed. Several informal investigations of the area have yielded odd EMF fluctuations, crystal clear EVPs, and hits on thermal equipment. Others have told of lights turning on and off by themselves, of extreme cold spots, of encounters with entities in attire spanning the ages, and of the constant feelings of being watched, of being followed, or of being touched by a presence unseen. And one now famous story from two reputable guests tells of when they were awakened in the middle of the night to their room feeling unnaturally hot even though the heat was off and the radiator cold, and quickly discovered that while they'd been asleep, their pajamas had been removed from their bodies and then been folded neatly at the foot of their bed. Saving the best and easily most infamous for last, while Yellowstone Park boasts a range of ghost stories, perhaps none are more renowned than the one that ties itself directly to our Old Faithful Inn. As this legend goes, in 1915 New York, the daughter of a wealthy shipping merchant would end up falling in love with an older man who worked at her family's home as a servant. When this young lady approached her father regarding her feelings, uncertain whether he should trust his daughter's instinct or whether the servant was simply trying to marry into the family's money, the father would agree to let the couple wed under the stipulation they be cut off entirely from family money, that they leave New York, and that they build a new life off of but one single dowry he'd allotted for them. The eager couple quickly agreed to these terms, were married, and would set off for Yellowstone, where they would stay at the Old Faithful in room 127. Unfortunately for the young bride, it wouldn't take long before her new hubby began showing his true colors, drinking every night, gambling compulsively, and otherwise burning through their money at an unbelievably fast rate. And eventually, staff would report hearing fighting through their door, which would only become more frequent. One night, however, things would hit ahead when, based on the commotion overheard, one of their fights seemingly became violent, and after which the husband stormed out of their room, slammed the door, and exited the hotel, never to be seen again. For days following, the bride remained in her room, and hotel staff respected her privacy, until eventually concern grew, and a hotel maid ventured into 127 to find the bloodied body of the woman in the bathtub, missing her head, which was discovered a few days later in the hotel's crow's nest. Ever since this fateful night, guests have reported encounters with the apparition of this murdered woman, who's since been dubbed the Headless Bride of Yellowstone, and that's usually observed descending the stairs from the crow's nest, clad in a white gown, and carrying her own head under her arm. There's just one small problem with this story. If the whole thing seems a bit ambiguous to you as well, just know you're not alone there, and that's for the very simple reason that this tale is utter hogwash. It's all made up. That's right. According to an assistant manager, George Borneman, he created the story to thrill tourists looking for a scare, and a simple search for any solid documentation regarding a beheading at the Old Faithful Inn literally pulls up zilch, aside from blogs and posts surrounding George's story. But here's the creepy part. Even though this drama is supposedly nothing more than fiction, this hasn't stopped persistent reports of run-ins with the Headless Bride, many of whom that are from reputable sources, most of which who have never even heard of George Borneman nor of his legend before in their lives, begging the more disturbing question, who or what are people actually running into across inn grounds after dark? Thanks for tuning in for this Paranormal Pit Stop. If you enjoyed hearing our histories and ghost stories, subscribe to our channel, like this upload, and share us with anyone you feel could use a good scare. We'll catch you all next time.